Hi lads, this is episode 2 of my Caro Kann to 2000 speedrun series. In this episode, we're going to be playing people in the 400 to 500 rating range. We're going to play 3 games today. The first was a Caro Kann Breyer variation, and the second and third game were kind of Caro Kann exchanges. Please do click like on the video so that these videos can go viral and I can make more money on the internet. Let's jump into the games. We're actually sitting at 398, but our first opponent here is a 411 from the United States, and he's gone e4, and it's only against e4 can we play the Caro Kann. If they play d4, this is actually the Slav defense. So e4, and we play c6, and they've gone for this variation. It's called the Breyer variation. It's a wee bit different, but we still always, on every Caro Kann game you play, whatever your opponent does, move 2, you're going to play d5 against everything. There's not even an exception. Here they've just developed their bishop, so I'm going to actually capture this pawn, and I'm going to develop my knight to f6. Now, he'll probably retake, and that's fine. I think knight on f6 is quite good. I guess maybe I'd be worried about the e5 push. Here he's jumped out. I'm always just at this rating range just going to ask, because more often than not, you're not going to be in a whole lot of theory. Often you're going to see some just random moves. So against the knight jumping out, we're asking, what does that knight want? He wants to attack the pawn. So I think I should defend the pawn. So let's put our knight here on f6. And e5 is an okay move to play. I think this is a good move because it stops his pawn from pushing, and we have a pawn in the center of the board. Okay, and here he's pushed his f-pawn, which weakens his king. So maybe we can get a piece on this diagonal at some point. That's just something going through my mind. But really what I want to do is get all 4 of my minor pieces developed and then castle my king. So the next simple way to do that would be just to develop my bishop. I'm thinking e7 because maybe I can get on this diagonal, or maybe I'm thinking c5 because this diagonal is already extremely weak. I think c5 looks like a much better square. When I place my piece here, it does seem quite loose. There's nothing defending this piece, so I do want to make sure I can defend it. Now, if he tries to get castled here, like maybe knight here, bishop here, and castle, he can't because my bishop's stopping him. So right now, I don't know where his king's going to go. Let's castle my king. And then we're going to look to get the rest of our pieces developed. Okay, knight is coming here to g3. If you ever have a knight on g3 or b3, or if you're playing the white pieces and your opponent has a knight on g6 and b6, often it's a very good idea to push the flank pawn. But what I'm just going to do in today's game is just get my pieces developed. So I'd like my knight to get to a good square. I think that good square is probably d7, protecting my bishop. And I don't want to do that and block my bishop in. So first I'm going to develop my own bishop. And I think putting it on e6 looks like a good square for it. Maybe I can come up here to c4 at some point and look down this way. He's jumping in the middle. And this is very interesting because if I capture here, he's going to recapture with the bishop, and then I can take his queen. He takes here, which means he can't castle queen side. He's going to be castling king side, and I'm already looking at his king side. So if I'm being honest, this looks pretty good with me. I'm going to capture. Now, I also have bishop here at some point. We could trade off. There's almost a tactic here. Bishop f2, and if the king takes, we win the queen, but it doesn't quite work yet. I think he'll probably capture me, and then I'll capture back. I could just go knight d7 and not allow him to capture immediately, and then put the knight on b6. Yeah, I mean, why don't I do this? I don't think it's too wrong. Let's go for this. We want to get all of our minor pieces developed first. So we'll start with this weird move, and maybe put it here and trade off queens. Don't know. Okay, so he's hitting my knight, so I'm going to have to either move my knight or attack one of his pieces. Now, I could attack his queen here, then I don't know where the queen's going to move, but probably not over this way. He'll probably come to one of these squares, and then I'll have to move my knight, and my bishop will be loose. Well, that's probably okay. I can put the knight here as well. I mean, I could do that immediately. You know what? I'll go to this square, and if he captures me, I can recapture with the bishop. I think that looks totally fine. And maybe I can put a rook here on the e-file because his king hasn't castled. And I might be able to castle very soon here. Again, he's already fallen to a tactic. So basically, the tactic is I can take his knight and hit his queen. So his queen's going to have to move, or he's going to take back. And then I win his bishop. Or I could just take this bishop for free. He he takes my bishop, and I recapture here. So this one wins 3 points. He takes, and I win 3 points again. So I'd be up 3 points with a knight here and here. Or this one is capture, capture, capture. I'd be up 3 points, and he had double pawns. That looks good too. And both my bishops are going to be very powerful. Although if I capture here, he can take here first, then I take his queen. Yeah, I think I like capturing here first because I think his doubled pawns look quite nice. He has to go into this line, and then we can capture this bishop. So these bishops are both very powerful. This bishop's defended, but I really don't want him to take and trade down. I mean, it might be okay, but I don't think I want to trade down because I really like having both of them. I'm also looking at this diagonal here. Checking his king. If he blocks, then we're in a bit of trouble. Maybe he even pulls back. So I think what I'm going to just do here is just pull my bishop back a square. I like my bishops, and I want them to continue looking down this way. Okay, he's attacking my queen. Seems like a good move. If I go here, he takes with the pawn. I take with the knight. He takes with the knight. I take with the pawn. He takes here. I take here. I mean, everything's fine. This is defended 1, 2, 3 times and only attacked 3 times. And actually, when I push, I'm actually defending with the rook as well. So it's actually defended 4 times. So let's go for this. Does he have a check on this diagonal? He doesn't, because my light squared bishop's very strong. If he takes my queen, I just take back with the rook. And I don't think this piece can be captured because we can take with a pawn. Or maybe that's a little ugly, I don't know. But everything looks fine here. Now, I do have a check here. Probably I want to go for that. Because if his king moves, we get this piece for free. And it can't go to any of these squares. So he probably should block or block. And if he does either of those moves, I can take the knight for free. Okay, so we're going to just grab this for free. And now he can't block. He has to go with queen, and that's it. That's GG. Well, we'll jump into the review real quick and see where we went wrong, because I'm sure we did go wrong. But hopefully you enjoyed that game. All the Caro Kann is really c6, d5, get your pieces on good squares, and then evaluate the position. And just take your time, go slow. Yeah, his only move here was queen blocks and queen takes is checkmate. All right, let's see if we did anything wrong. And again, my opponents won't lose any rating for these games. They will get their rating points back because this is an authorized speedrun account. Okay, we played with an 80% accuracy and only 3 inaccuracies. So let's see where we went wrong. So in this variation, I suppose I'm supposed to play e5. And if they take, we take back and have 2 pawns in the center and they only have 1. Okay, maybe in the future I play e5. I guess I could do that. That's the thing about them playing this sort of weird move. Normally you see 2 pawns in the center. But because they don't have a pawn on d4, we can actually play e5 and control that square. So this is good to know. I'm going to play this in the future. And the way I played it was totally fine. This was the best square for the bishop. Castling was good. Getting the bishop out here was good. And here, I shouldn't have captured the pawn. I should have instead moved in here because it threatens checkmate in 1 move. And how do they defend this checkmate square? If they defend with the bishop, we take. And then yeah, they have to block. We're just up a piece. So they have to play queen here. And if they do that, then we can distract the queen. And they have to give the queen up by going here. We take, and they take our queen. And then we take, we're hitting their knight, they're hitting our bishop, so they take, and we take. So this is a bit crazy and messy, but in this variation, we would go up a knight, and they would go up a pawn. So they've still got 7 pawns, we would have 6. So I did miss this. I should have looked to be aggressive with my queen. Okay, and I captured here, and apparently capturing here was slightly better. So we looked at this variation, and I thought capture back with the knight, but we actually missed capture the pawn with check. And if the king goes here, then we fork the king and queen, and the king can't come forwards because of the bishop. And if they go here, then we have a checkmate in 4. Wow. And if they go to this square, then we check here. They have to go here, and that's checkmate. So we would have had a checkmate in 4 there if I had seen this idea of capturing the pawn with check instead of capturing the bishop. That's if they go to this square. And if they had just come forwards, then we can check. We've grabbed the pawn, they move their king, and now we can grab the bishop. So we did miss a cool idea there. Everything else was pretty simple. And let's jump into game 2 with the Caro Kann. All right, our opponent is a 423 from Egypt, and he has played e4 again. And so remember, our first 2 moves are c6 and d5 against whatever he plays. He's played e4, so we can play a Caro Kann. So we'll put our pawn on d5. We'll recapture. This is the exchange Caro Kann where they take the pawn, so we just take back. And now we have 2 pawns in the center, and they only have 1. So the exchange Caro Kann is pretty good. I like it. Okay, he's attacking this pawn 2 times, and we're only defending once with our queen. So how can we add a second defender to the pawn? We just go knight to f6, defending that pawn 2 times as well. Now, we could have gone e6, but we don't want to block our bishop inside this pawn chain. So we kind of wait to play e6 until our bishop can get outside the pawn chain. And in this situation, we can put the bishop on g4, hitting the queen, and then we can play the move e6. And that will just solidify this pawn chain. And this is a typical exchange Caro Kann. Now, in the exchange Caro Kann, what we want to do is get all 4 of these minor pieces developed and then push these pawns down the board, because they're going to have 3 pawns here and we're only going to have these 2. And so this is called a minority attack, where we go 2 pawns against 3. It's actually quite good for us. Okay, they've advanced their queen. Let's look and see, is he hitting anything? He is hitting this guy. So maybe he wants to get rid of our knight with another piece and then take this guy off. But right now there's nothing to worry about. Let's just play e6, solidify the pawn chain, and now we're going to develop our bishop to one of these squares. Now, normally I'd be worried about bishop g5 attacking our knight, and then when we capture back, they can win the bishop for free. But the queen's actually blocking the bishop's scope, so can't get to g5. Okay, he's just attacked our king, and we either move our king or block with a minor piece. We obviously don't want to block with the queen. And so which minor piece do we want to develop? Well, if we move this guy to block, we lose the bishop. So we have to block with this one. We don't want to move the king to e7. So this square or this square, putting the knight on c6 in the Caro Kann is often what you go for. So the c6 square just makes total sense here. We're also attacking this pawn, so if he doesn't take it, and you know, maybe he pulls back at some point, maybe we could win that. But he's just captured our knight, so we're going to recapture, and we still have 1 minor piece to develop, and our opponent has 2 minor pieces to develop because they've wasted time moving their queen a little bit. So we should be feeling pretty happy here. I do believe we are ahead on development, and when you're ahead on development, good things start to happen. Okay, he's attacking our bishop. We can just pull the bishop back, or we can go for an interesting move where we attack our opponent's queen. So if your piece is ever in danger, you can move the piece, or you can find a more powerful piece to go after. So instead of moving this, we've forced our opponent to move. Now they've moved, we could think about defending this bishop. So we don't want to lose track of that. Now here, actually, maybe I made a mistake because I've allowed their queen to move here and actually go after the g7 square. Is that an issue for me? You know, I don't actually think it is, because I think when I play bishop h5, if they take this pawn, we can go rook g8. They only have h6. And maybe h6 is all they need to defend their queen. Do we have anything tricky here? Like, can we go h6? They take here, and then we go to this crazy square, h5, and that traps the queen, but they can take the bishop, so that's not working. I think here the most logical thing to do is just move our bishop. So sometimes attacking your opponent's more powerful piece can result in some issues, because we were able to simply do this on the last turn and we didn't need to do this move. This move left a weak pawn on g7. So now our opponent should really just take this, because they can come to h6 and be totally fine. Okay, they didn't. Now we can defend this pawn, and the best way to do that is just to simply castle. Now our king defends all of these pawns, so we should be totally fine here. Now, they still haven't developed this bishop, so I do think we have a slight edge here. I think what we can do here is move our bishop and attack their pawn, which maybe they have to pull all the way back to defend, or we could take this knight and double their pawns, and that looks really bad for them because then they have a king and queen lined up here. I think this looks like a good chance to do that. I'm going to go for this. It just looks like an annoying pawn formation for them. Doubled pawns here and an isolated pawn on the h3 square. They probably won't be too happy about that. Now, I think what I can do here as well is put my bishop on e7, and this creates maybe an attack on the queen. So anywhere that this knight moves, if the knight jumps anywhere, the queen's going to be in danger. They could mistakenly take our knight and we're going to hit their queen. So I'm just going to go for this move. It looks a little crazy, but they've fallen for this. So now we win their queen. And if they take with bishop, we win their bishop. But that's just a simple case of a discovered attack. And I think your opponents in the 400 rating range will fall for this kind of tactic. So we're going to take back with check. And they can obviously block with the rook. And now we have a queen that's very mobile. So let's just put it here on d2, attacking this pawn. Maybe we could have gone to h5 as well, attacking this pawn, but the king can simply defend here and then he can get the other rook over. Okay, here I'm going to just capture the pawn. And this game shouldn't be too difficult to win. We're just up material. They have a knight and we have a queen. The queen is much easier to maneuver around the board. Maybe a simple way to try and get a quick win here will be rook b8, take this pawn, and then check here and checkmate. Something to look for. But if I put the rook here, they can actually push the pawn, and then our rook won't have any entrance. So instead, we should probably take the pawn first. However, our opponent here has just moved their rook. Their rook was defended by the knight, and now it's not defended. So we're just going to capture this guy off for free. This pawn is hanging on f3, so we're going to try to take that on the next turn if we can. And then that will mean this pawn's weak, and they'll maybe have to go rook back to g3. So we'll see what they do here. I'm guessing my opponent is either an average Egyptian with the name Mo Salah, or he's a Liverpool fan and he resigns there. I'm guessing he's probably just an Egyptian named Mo Salah. But anyway, let's check the review here and see how we did. Okay, we played with a 96.2. I thought we had an inaccuracy, but let's see where we went wrong or right. So here we just developed our minor pieces to good squares. They took, we took. Here they attacked our bishop. And we actually played the best move attacking their queen, but it didn't look like the best move because it looked like we were dropping a pawn here. So then when we pulled back, they could have taken here. And apparently this is totally fine for us because after queen to h6, we can just take this pawn on g2. I wasn't even thinking about this, but it looks like we're actually kind of crushing according to the engine, negative 1.25. So here we castled, they castled, we took, they took. These pawns were doubled. Bishop back to e7 and rook here. So we're able to play this beautiful looking move, knight to e4. And they should have pulled the queen back and then we could have attacked the queen. And then they have to pull back again. And then we can lift the rook and threaten the queen and king. Don't worry about your knight when you can win the queen. All right, then we took the queen back. And the rest of this game was fairly simple. All right, let's do one more game with a Caro Kann. Our opponent's a 424 from India. And hopefully they play e4. Now again, okay, they did play e4. You can only play the Caro Kann against e4. It is the most common move though. And so it seems to be, I'm just getting fortunate. My opponents are playing it every game. Okay, they're playing the early queen. And I said before, don't worry, whatever your opponent does, this move included, we're always playing d5 on move 2. They've captured. Now we could capture with the queen, but why capture with the queen? It just means they can go knight here and attack our queen. We have to move it again. Instead, we're just going to capture back with the pawn. And we've basically transposed into the same opening that we had in the previous game. If the knight comes here, hitting our pawn, then we would just defend the pawn. We'd have a knight and a queen defending the pawn, and they'd have a queen and knight attacking the pawn. But here they've just blundered their queen. And I'm guessing they're going to resign here. Maybe I'll have to play another game of the Caro. Okay, looks like they want to play on, so let's play on. They're hitting my queen, and maybe we want to try to keep our queen as active as possible. Don't think so. It's probably simple and best to just bring the queen back to d8. The problem with having your queen out in the open is often it can get attacked. So if I go to this square or this square, they can develop their knight, and I'm going to have to move my queen again. If I go to this square, they could even put a pawn in the center and attack my queen with the bishop. If I go to this square, they can develop their bishop, and I'm going to have to move my queen again. So more often than not, it's just best to retreat the queen and then try to develop your pieces as best as possible. Okay, he's attacking my king. And in this situation, I'm not worried about bringing my queen to the outside of the pawn chain. I just want to protect my king, and I'm going to do that in the most aggressive way possible, where I'm actually attacking their bishop. Okay, here he's trying to get crazy. I don't know what he's attacking. This is defended twice. This bishop's defended twice. Maybe he's looking at the c7 square, but his bishop is not defended, so we're just going to capture that bishop. We're also attacking the knight. So probably here he needs to try to defend it. We would just take there. In that situation, his best move is probably just to pull the knight back and attack my bishop, forcing me to move my bishop again. Or maybe I could just defend with a piece. I think I'm just going to pull back to this square because it poses a slightly different threat. We're attacking g2. And yes, he can defend with blocking with a knight, but then we could take and the pawns are doubled, which is not good for him. He can also play f3. This would actually completely stunt my bishop and probably the best move. But then this diagonal will be very weak for him, and we can get a queen on that diagonal maybe and go after the king. He really needs to try to develop his pieces. Probably after playing f3 or whatever move he goes for here. Okay, he's just decided to move his knight. So we're just going to take that knight for free. Now, we could have probably taken this pawn and then the rook, but I'm just keeping things very simple. If there's a free piece, we'll just grab it and then go back to this plan. Okay, now we're going to take on g2. And I'm sorry that we're not really developing pieces and playing chess normally, but my opponent is allowing me to capture all of his pieces. And I'm telling you, under 500 elo, this is how most of your opponents will play the game. I could take this, but I'm not going to take it yet. I'll take it later. Let's just take this pawn in the center and attack his other rook. Now we also have checkmate threats here. He's taken here. We can just recapture, or we can check the king here. I don't see a checkmate, so let's just check the king by taking the rook first. And he has to come to one of these two squares. Now we're going to take the bishop and probably put the rook on d8. And then he's going to have to go to this square or this square. And probably the queen here and here is going to be some kind of checkmate at some point. Okay, so check to d8. And we can check with the queen here. The king's going to be forced to this square. We can check with the pawn, and the king's going to have to go to one of these two squares, and everything looks pretty simple. Okay, so he has to go to this square. It's his only move, and that looks like checkmate. We'll quickly check the review here. Okay, we played with a 98.2. Again, my opponents will be refunded their rating because it's not fair that I'm playing against them, being a better player, and they're forced to lose points. There weren't really any mistakes in that game from myself, so we're not going to review it, but I'll see you guys on episode 3 very soon. Bye for now.